Bruchim Habayim, we are continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Hilchot Shabbat, Siman Shin Aleph, we're up to Seif Chaf Dalet, the halachot of carrying what you can have on you and what you can't have on. And Shulchan Aruch over here speaks about something very interesting and perhaps controversial, of things that are considered not conventional refuah, but some unconventional things that were accepted in the time of Chazal as items that are beneficial for refuah, kamea, and other vegetations that the people would carry on them as a skula. So Shulchan Aruch writes, Yotzim b'minei asavim shkoshlin otam b'ksharim v'tolin otam l'refuah. There are some types of plantations that people would carry, actually they would bag them up, tie them like a necklace, they would hang it on themselves as a means of refuah. It was considered, accepted as a beneficial item, and that, says the Shulchan Aruch, would be not anything less than the kamea, like the Mishna Berura explains here. The ugamken bichlal kamea mumche is like a kamea. Kamea is this spiritually set up names and psukim that if they were tried and proved to be beneficial, then a person could go out with a kamea around their neck, right? It depends. Not every kamea is considered kamea mumche. If it hasn't been proven, the person who wrote it or the citations that are in the kamea and so on and so forth, then it would be very different. Like not everyone does kameas. Many Gedolei HaMekubalim used to write kameot for people. This is for it's multi-generational thing. I was speaking once to Rabbi Heinemann, or Moshe Heinemann, the rabbinic administrator, the main posek of Star K Kosher, and he's considered one of the leading poskim in not just Baltimore, Maryland, but in United States of America. And he told me that when he was younger, I had this chut of learning with him in his home for several years. He once said that he was studying the sources for writing kmeot and so on. He's a very interesting, colorful and multifaceted personality. And he said he tried to write a kamea, and he got messed up. He made a mistake in it. So he had to prepare a new one, a whole thing, and he did again, and again made a mistake, right? And a third time, and a fourth, and a fifth, and a sixth, and a he said at some point, I think it was, I think he mentioned 7 times. It was either 3 or 7. I recognize that that's very different, but now as I'm saying it, I doubt it was 7 or 3. But he said he took it as a sign from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that Hashem doesn't want him to be involved with this area of Chokhmah. But this is something that's there. Even nowadays, some of the leading Mekubalim, they still write Kimeot, and this was considered, certainly in the time of Chazal, as something beneficial. And if it was proven right, then you could carry it even on Shabbat because it's considered refuah. So here, this is also accepted. It was accepted in the time of Chazal that these certain items are good for refuah. So it's going to be the same thing as kamea mumche, as we're going to have in this Seif and the next one. The echad kamea shktav, echad kamea shel ikarim. Same thing is identical when you have a kamea, a segula that's written, or a segula that is just the item. In this case, would be this plantations, roots, whatever it is that they had, the asavim. It's considered a beautifying item for a sick person. It's something that he wants there. Tachshid is something that you're proud of having. You want to have it. You're never going to take it off. It's beautiful, it's nice, it's good. So even though that they may not look as nice, but something that the choleh really wants to have and is proud of and is happy with, and therefore it's considered a tachshid, like one of his garments that he's wearing, and therefore it will be fine. We're going to discuss this in the next Seif. The Shulchan Aruch really speaks about the kemeot directly. En yotzin bekamea shelo mumche, says the Shulchan Aruch, Seif Chafei. You cannot go out on Shabbat in the public domain with a kamea, one of these written charms that are not mumche. They're not considered proven right. Now, kamea shel mumche, as we'll see in just a moment, has different definitions. But if it's not a kamea shel mumche, if it's not proven, the person who wrote it, the text of the charm, then you cannot go out with it on Shabbat. Ve'imhu mumche yotzim bo. But if it is kamea shel mumche, then it is fine. It's considered a tachshid. You could go out with it in the public domain on Shabbat. Lo shena itmechi gavra velo kamea. And says the Shulchan Aruch, there are two elements in becoming kamea shel mumche. One is the person who wrote it, that he is established as a person that writes beneficial charms, that everything that, let's say, Mordechai Sharabi the Mekubal, or Rabbi Yitzchak Kaduri the Mekubal, or Gamliel Rabinovitz, this is old in the time of the earlier Achronim. For instance, Rabbi Yonatan Eibshitz, he was a tremendous Gaon, an unbelievable, creative, and fantastic mind in Klal Yisrael. From a very, very young age, he was known as an unusually capable individual. You're talking about, completely out of the chart genius and talent. Not time for stories of it right now. I'll tell you one story about Chanukah. It's a simple one. He was 4 or 5 years old in Cheder, and the Rebbe was right before Chanukah, and the Rebbe wanted to give them some busy job, busy work. So he said, whoever could tell me how many candles we light all together on Chanukah gets to go home now. So immediately before he finished the pasuk, the question, this little Yonatan Eibshitz said, of course, 44, it's a pasuk. He says, a pasuk? The whole thing is the Rabbanan. What's a pasuk? How did you know 44? If you have 36 candles and they have shamash 8 of that, so that's 44 altogether. So it says about the thing, a pach shemen, it says, hapach nishbar, v'anachnu nimlatnu. Pach, in the pasuk, is a reference to a trap. But pach also means the pach shemen, the jug of the oil. It says, hapach nishbar. Pach is gimatria 88. Nishbar, he divided to 2, is 44. V'anachnu nimlatnu, I go home. That's the genius of a 4-year-old Yonatan Eibshitz. So it became a very controversial thing, because you have to understand that this is a post-Shabtai Tzvi era, which brought unspoken damage and unbelievable travesty, really, to what happened to Klal Yisrael because of Shabtai Tzvi. So people were very sensitive to young people who were very talented, and those who were like that were chased, especially if they had gravitation towards Kabbalah. So both Rabbi Yonatan Eibshitz, he was really chased down by Rabbi Yaakov Emden. Rabbi Yaakov ben Tzvi Emden, the Yabetz, who was a prolific writer and a tremendous Gaon and a leader, he went after, he put a real target on the back of Rabbi Eibshitz. It was a tremendous machloket, because people they could not trust. Same happened to the Ramchal. Nowadays we read the works of Rabbi Eibshitz, of Yarot Dvash and Urim V'Tumim, his works in Halacha and in Drush. Unbelievable works, everything that he wrote. And of course the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, he was also chased down because he also was in his teens when he was telling people the Shorosh of Neshama, and he started writing a Zohar, Tinyana, a second Zohar, and he was a phenomenal mind and talent, and also was suspected to be from those who followed Shabtai Tzvi Machshemo. So this became a very so Rabbi Yonatan Eibshitz used to write kemeot, right? That's one of the things he did. So if you have someone like that has been proven to write kemeot that are beneficial and effective, so that is itmechi gavra, that the person writing it is mumche. But it's not sufficient necessarily, because lo shena itmechi gavra velo kamia. If the person writing the kamia is always effective in the kameot that he writes, but this is specific kamea has not been ever tried, that is considered itmechi gavra. The person is proven, but the kamea has not been proven. Kegon shkatav lachash echad b'shalosh igrot. if a person has written one type of kamea in three different times, this person wrote them, and every single one of them, they caused the refuah, they were effective, so that this person now is a person that has written 3 kemeot that they're all effective. Now we have a chazakah that whenever this person writes this lachash, this text, it will be chazakah that it will work, it will be effective. Anytime that he writes it from now forward. But if he tries a new lachash, a new kamea, then the person is itmechi, that he's a befitting personality to be writing kemeot, but the lachash, this new kamea, has not been proven yet until it's 3 times also. And if the previous kamea that worked 3 times when this person had written it, now a second person comes and writes, copies the same kamea, same lachash, also is not going to be mutar to carry it on Shabbat, because the kamea is mumche, this lachash, this text is mumche, but not the gavra. It has to be a combination of both of those for you to be able to carry it on Shabbat. So says the Shulchan Aruch, lo shna itmechi kamea velo gavra kegon shekatav lachash echad beigeret achad. The other scenario would be if you wrote one text in one kamea, v'ripeh bo shalosh pe'amim, and this 3 times was used by 3 different people, and every single time it was effective, and the person was healed against all odds. So that we consider that this kamea is itmechi, it became kamea mumche, this one, but not the person that wrote it. שאותה איגרת מומחה לכל אדם, וכל שכנים itmechi gavra ve'kamea. So if you had one of which, and especially if you have a person that wrote a kamea, and the person is itmechi, and the kamea is itmechi, then that kamea for sure you could be using to take it out. The scenario for that would be that the person wrote the same lachash, the same text in 3 different kameas. Each one of them worked for 3 different people, right? So now the person is itmechi, and every one of the kemeot that he wrote are itmechi. So that obviously would be the best case scenario that would be allowed to carry it on Shabbat as well. itmechi gavra lelachash ze bekol igeret sheichtevenu v'itmechu igerot halalu lekol adam. Now says the Shulchan Aruch, ודווקא שבאו שתי המחאות ביחד, אבל אם itmechi גברא תחילה ואחר כך עשה קמע וריפא 3 פעמים, if it was not together, but rather the person became muchzak, he created the chazakah that he thinks he writes are good, but afterwards he made a 4th kamea, and that 4th kamea was able to be used 3 times by 3 different people, and each time it worked. Lo talinan be'amcha'ad kamea v'rak be'amcha'ad gavra. That would be considered just itmechi gavra, not itmechi kamea, because it was not together at the same time, says the Rama over here. Again, without getting too much in the details of this, because this is not necessarily used nowadays as much. But says the Shulchan Aruch, avalim katav shlosha kemeim la'adam echad. But if you wrote 3 different kameas for one person, Reuben wrote 3 different kameas for Shimon. In that case, because the recipient is only one person, even though that every one of the times, the 3 times that he wrote it, they worked, still, lo itmechi, lo gavra, lo kamea. Not the person and not the kamea is itmechi for other people. One person to one person does not create a chazakah. It has to be either a person writing 3 different kemeot for 3 different people, or that would be giving a chazakah to the writer of the kamea, or one kamea that was used for 3 different people in 3 different scenarios, and it worked, which would give chazakah to that kamea, it would be itmechi kamea, but not itmechi gavra. But anything short of that would not work. Now we have to discuss, now we're out of time, but we have to discuss what are the applications nowadays with these things. You have kameot, you have skulot, you have different people who carry things on them for, for instance, people carry certain plantations, which is considered ezov, right? And it's neged ayin hara, for instance. Right? I was with one of the Gedolei Ador actually a few weeks ago, and on Motzei Shabbat they were looking for besamim, so he pulls out of his pocket, right, which I think he was carrying it on Shabbat. I think he pulled out of his pocket a bag of ezov, right? And he said it smells good. So he said besamim on it. And he said he carries it for a skula, neged ayin hara and whatnot. But that's again something that we have to discuss. What are the applications of these items in our generation? Are they viewed still halachically the same thing? Do we consider challenging this with the available science of the generation, or do we deal with it the same way as it was viewed in the time of Chazal? It's something that Be'ezrat Hashem will discuss in the days to come.